morning and welcome to Coffee and Conversation. I hope you're doing well. Grab a beverage, maybe a coffee or tea, find a comfy spot to sit and join me for a few minutes as we look into God's Word together. I was talking with someone on FaceTime a few days ago, and we had not seen each other in a long time. We were catching up, and I was learning what was new in her life, and I asked her how she was coping with living in the midst of a global pandemic. Then she said, well, I've put on the COVID-30. How about you? And I looked at her very confused and said, what do you mean, the COVID-30? And she said, have you put on 30 pounds since COVID started? Well, after my initial, how dare you ask me that look, I told her, maybe I put on the COVID-15, but really I have no idea because I don't own a weigh scale. A long time ago, I realized that it wasn't healthy for me to have such an instrument of torture in my house. I don't want to be constantly checking to see if I've gained or lost weight. Weight can be a real battle for people, but this morning I want you to consider a weight that is a far greater battle. What if we could step on a scale that measures our emotional baggage? Emotional baggage is usually the term we use for unresolved negative issues of an emotional nature. Most of the time, we're not even aware of how much we're carrying. We all have emotional baggage, and some of us have heavier loads than others. There's the weight called guilt, the weight called shame, the weight called unforgiveness, the weight called rejection, the weight called loneliness, the weight called insecurity, or the weight called anxiety. I've witnessed those weights increase in people's lives while living in the midst of the COVID crisis. Think about it. Have any of those weights gotten heavier for you in the past year? Maybe they have, but you just have gotten so used to dragging it around that you don't even notice that it's there. Yet every chance we get to move forward, it's this weight that holds us back, keeping us from healthy relationships, keeping us from serving with joy, and keeping us from living free and full. That's why it's so important to lose the weight. And I think the first step in doing that is to be honest with yourself. Identify your emotional baggage. What triggers you emotionally? Are you anxious most of the time? Do you feel sad frequently? Are you mostly angry, always looking for a fight? How heavy are you? Denial doesn't work, but going to God does help. Jesus offers to help us lose the weight. He said in Matthew 11:28 and 29, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." This is such a simple solution, but we usually don't believe it. We want more complicated steps. But when God says come to Him and give it to Him, He wants us to know that He's there for us, and He wants to carry our burdens. We can bring our emotional baggage to God by simply praying to Him. We can candidly tell Him about our past, present, and our worries about the future. We can tell Him why we might feel guilt or shame or anxious or insecure. Knowing and confessing truth is key. When we define who we are based on the baggage that we carry, we can believe lies that keep us from moving forward in our lives. Whether it's lies about ourselves based on what we've done to others or what others have done to us. We need to bring those lies to God, and He will remind us who we really are, who He says we are. And by praying and reading God's Word, we can find out who we are and give our worries to God, someone who loves us unconditionally and is willing to take our burdens off our shoulders. Sometimes our emotional baggage can be too deep or too painful to bring to God on our own. There are some obstacles in life that require extra help. And if your baggage is too heavy and you can't even begin to face it, I want to encourage you to seek the help that you need. How heavy are you? Have you gained the COVID-30? Well, it's time to lose the weight. I'd like to leave you with one more verse. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us." I want to thank you for joining me today. Take care, stay safe, and let your light shine.